Harper West stepped tentatively into the prestigious arena where the cycling race was already underway. Her appearance sharply contrasted against the imposing opulence that engulfed her. She wore a well-worn cycling outfit, its fabric clinging to her after a morning spent training. The air around her, fragrant with hints of freshly cut grass from the nearby lawns and the floral notes from the elaborate centerpieces set on tables, buzzed with the conversations of elegantly dressed spectators. With her simple running shoes and the backpack snug over her shoulders, she looked like a misplaced piece in a polished mosaic of designer dresses, tailored suits, and the occasional gleam from the diamond-studded accessories that adorned many attendees. Harper was conscious of each surprised glance and whispered remark that followed her entry. Her cheeks flushed under the scrutiny, but she gathered herself, determined to absorb and enjoy the energy of the event. In the midst of it all, one woman, a striking figure in an immaculate white dress, eyed Harper with a sharp, scrutinizing gaze. Her impeccably coiffed hair and flawless makeup screamed wealth and privilege. Her eyes raked over Harper's shoes, then to the scent of her sweat-laced gear, and finally settled on the modest backpack. A couple nearby sniggered audibly, deliberately loud enough for Harper to hear, as they nudged each other and whispered that she was nothing but a roadblock. Up front with the important people, one sneered, a cruel edge to their laughter. The masked hostility, masked behind smiles as bright as the day, rippled outward, coaxing similar snide laughter from others, confirming Harper's worst fears. She stood out here in ways she had hoped to avoid. The woman in white, her presence as commanding as the bell tolling to signal a race lap, glided gracefully through the crowd, her sights fixed on Harper like a hawk targeting its prey. As she approached, her demeanor was one of courteous inquiry, though beneath lay a current of ice. "Excuse me," she called out, her voice cutting cleanly through the ambient noise. "Can I help you? Are you lost, perhaps? The viewing area here is reserved for VIPs only." Harper met her gaze with a steely resolve, though the swell of emotions inside her threatened to drown her composure. "No, I'm not lost," Harper replied, her voice steady despite the undercurrent of anxiety. "I'm here to watch the race and support a friend." Her statement hung in the air, pure and uncut. The woman in white surveyed her once more, this time with a veil of contempt so thin it was barely concealed. "I see," she replied slowly, drawing out each word like a scalpel through silk. "But, surely, you must realize," she gestured broadly to the refined surroundings and the sprinkling of jewels and high-end fashion, "we have standards to maintain here." Harper's heart pounded in her chest, the sound of it deafening amidst the faint clink of glasses and scattered applause for the cyclists relentlessly circling the track. Her skin prickled with a concentrated heat of mortification as the woman's words drew derisive chuckles and glances from neighboring guests. Refusing to be drawn into the growing spectacle, Harper conjured every remnant of dignity she possessed. "I'm just here to enjoy the race like everyone else," she replied, attempting a smile that barely concealed the crack in her composure. The woman in white leaned in slightly, the act oddly menacing. "Of course," she said, voice dripping with saccharine faux courtesy. "However, you seem to be creating a distraction." Her gesture toward the seats indicated the increasingly irked crowd behind her, eyes narrowed, some pointing their phones at Harper, a protruding thorn in the midst of their curated spectacle. "Would it be too much to ask you to perhaps keep a bit out of the way?" It was not a question, it was a thinly veiled command wrapped in courtesy, echoing authority and steel. The air seemed to drop in temperature as onlookers recorded the exchange, capturing Harper's visible discomfort. The derisive whispers climbed in volume, each one a small cut that sliced through her resolve. Harper remained frozen, utterly alone under the weight of mounting judgment, her world shrinking to this pinpointed spot of ridicule. A race official, summoned by eager fingers pointing in Harper's direction, approached apologetically yet urging her with polite insistence to vacate her spot, gesturing toward a cramped section at the back where the views were poor and the sounds of the crowd drowned out the rhythm of the race. "I'm really sorry, miss, but if you wouldn't mind." "This?" Harper hesitated, her thoughts swarming. She shifted under the weight of countless eyes, reluctant to leave yet acutely aware of the mounting hostility, the overt line drawn between her world and theirs. A cocoon of silence enveloped the gathering as she finally nodded numbly, swallowing her pride like a bitter pill, and followed the official to a distant corner. The path felt interminably long, a glistening gauntlet of disdainful glances and smug smiles forging a wall she could never scale. The tracks of her tears stayed hidden amidst the smog of humiliation hanging heavily yet invisibly in the charged air. When she finally reached the edge of the VIP section, she allowed herself a moment to breathe, the fumes of grass and expensive perfume now mingling as they lifted and spun around her. Pressing a hand to her chest, she smothered the bubbling cry that threatened to break free. She surveyed the arena from her new vantage, letting the excitement of the race partially soothe the hurt, though witnessing the unfettered joy in others did little to rekindle her own. Here, at last, she was out of sight if not out of mind. Yet, while the velvet ropes had marred the distance between Harper and where she was now, they were not impenetrable. They flamed bright, taunting her to cross them, to defy an authority that felt as constructed as the lives of those who'd pushed her away. She realized, with a tremor of despondence, that the entire time they had been circling the same track, both cyclists and spectators bound by invisible rules and unwritten boundaries, an intricate dance of societal dictates she'd hoped to sidestep. Only now did the sharp edges reveal themselves, cutting into the fabric of her resolve, of her hope to coexist without conflict. The bitter truth underlaying the elegance: she was as much a spectator in their lives, standing at the periphery, absorbing their stories without truly stepping within the lines. It was a reflection that cut deeper than any offhand remark, barbed but temporary. A scar made from wire remains longer than any wound inflicted by words. Harper watched now from within her cloaked refuge, fighting the urge to run, to hide, to eject herself from an environment that had only barely acknowledged her before so starkly excluding her. Despite the turmoil, a seedling of defiance planted itself in her heart, thread of bloom kept dormant, concealed beneath a layer of trepidation and hushed dignity. She would endure, she vowed, for as long as the race ran. She'd bide her time like the warriors she constantly admired, determined not to yield to pride or prejudice but to stand resolute against the gale and prove something, if not to them, then to herself. Each moment Disney jazzed up for viewers would ebb, the pomp and grandeur muting eventually. In the folds of their elitism, she would remain, present and immutable, attached by unseen threads to the race she revered too deeply to truly leave behind. As Harper settled into her isolated spot, the vibrant world of spectators resumed its seamless ballet of laughter, applause, and the occasional murmur of approval as the cyclists zoomed past in a blur of color and speed. The woman in white, having resumed her place amidst the gilded seats, surveyed the thrumming elegance of the crowd, her satisfaction a barely concealed gleam in her eyes. She had upheld what she deemed the proper order, having removed the eyesore that, in her mind, threatened to mar the prestige and exclusivity of the event. Her belief in her own authority was unshakable, built over years of navigating and, indeed, molding the social hierarchies of such spectacles. It was another notch on her belt of perceived superiority, an act she privately congratulated herself on for maintaining the sanctity of the occasion. To her, people like Harper West represented a kind of disruption, a ripple in the smooth fabric of their curated social gatherings. Imposters, she mused, had no place in their circle. While the woman luxuriated in her self-satisfaction, the race continued unabated. The buzz of intensity from the track filled the air as the cyclists, powerful and determined, pushed towards the finish line, their legs churning, muscles straining with each lap. Harper watched from her spot, the disappointment still raw but her admiration for the athletes undiminished. Underneath her veneer of forced calm, a tempest brewed, emotions swirling tumultuously, yet she composed herself enough to remain still and composed. Then, a curious shift occurred. As the race neared its crescendo, a sudden swell of gasps rippled through the crowd, drawing all eyes once again to the main event. However, this time it was not a remarkable athlete or a fantastical feat on the track that demanded attention. Instead, a sharply dressed official strode purposefully towards Harper's secluded corner, clutching a crisp envelope. Harper's heart skipped. The uniformed man approached directly, with a diligence that suggested authority as well as respect. Leaning down slightly, as if to compensate for the noise of the crowd, he spoke just loud enough for Harper alone. "Miss West," he queried, eyes searching until they found hers. "Yes?" Harper replied, eyes filled with an unsettling mixture of hope and confusion. The official handed her the envelope, containing an exquisitely embossed invitation. "If you'll please come with me. The event organizers have asked for you." The hushed, intimate exchange kindled a wave of curiosity among those nearby, whose previous derision had grown tepid, now supplanted with intrigue. Harper nodded, acknowledging with quiet grace, and followed him through the sea of stares, those same specters that once bore witness to her degradation, now tilting toward interest. As she stood, the collective murmur crescendoed into a clamoring of unasked questions. What change had come over the pulse of the crowd? What revelation dared to upturn the carefully curated atmosphere? With each careful step Harper took, eyes followed, fixation shifting from idle entertainment to something considerably more compelling. The trackside podium was an island of order amidst a sea of silent inquiry. Harper, guided by the official, moved with quiet authority, taking her place beside the panelists and organizers who now regarded her as more than mere bystander. She straightened her spine, sucking in the crisp air, flavored with the scent of anticipation and slight perspiration that lingered from the racing atmosphere. A commotion spiked among the spectators as whispers bore rumors like wildfire through dry grass. Harper had embraced her role as neither apology nor explanation were necessary under the renewed perspectives being crafted that moment. Through the PA system, an amplified voice announced the stunning news that had initiated the shift. Harper West, once perceived an outcast, was revealed as a pivotal force in the prestigious event, a renowned former champion whose sponsorship had been vital in hosting the race. Moreover, she had transitioned her passion into successful entrepreneurship, providing resources not only essential for the event's success but inspiring budding cyclists now and in years to come. Gasps and hushed tones grew louder as phones emerged from pockets and purses, recording the unexpected tenons. Faces that were cold and closed off now held expressions of awe and puppy-like shame. The woman in white watched in disbelief, her eyes narrowing into narrow slits of astonishment as Harper's presence now carried an aura of undeniable respect and vindication. The murmurs morphed into a tidal wave of embarrassed apologies and clumsy attempts at reconciliation. But Harper's reaction remained uncharmed. Her focus rested solely on the athletes who stood on the platform, their awaiting medals a testament to the day's culmination of physical endeavors and lifelong dreams. Yet Harper stood poised, unaffected by the Zephyrus Assembly's changing winds, her purpose worn like a carving etched in stone. She received the acknowledgement with muffled smile, hands offering applause toward those who had pushed through the race with determination she had come to foster and admire so deeply. In a backdrop once saturated with pretense, Harper West had cast an immutable light of authenticity that bound the spectators to a shared moral epiphany. The yawning chasm between their preconceived disdain and sudden recognition of her value remained vast but was traversed by the subtle arc of her grace. The textures of the moment had shifted radically, aligning the landscape of onlookers in reflection and admiration. Harper herself was made more solid, her sarafan dress no longer a sloppy relic but a symbolic tassel of resilience, a postcard penned by victory's hand. Harper took her place on the podium, her heart steady, buoyed by the assertive elegance she had cultivated through years of both racing and professional dedication. The platform, initially intended for champions only, now hosted its benefactor, a living testament to perseverance and unseen support. The master of ceremonies, his voice full of reverence that had been absent earlier, took to the microphone to publicize Harper's identity and contributions. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, "today, it is our honor to recognize not only the talents displayed on this track but also the extraordinary generosity and passion of someone who has made this event possible. Harper West, a decorated former cycling champion and thriving entrepreneur, stands among us, not merely as a spectator, but as the driving spirit behind this prestigious race." The audience collectively held its breath, the air electric with revelation. The tension of disbelief wove through the thrums of disbelief. Harper remained steady, meeting the gaze of those who now bore the weight of their earlier judgments, all too aware of the transformation forged at her emergence. The woman in white, whose condescension had been so vociferous, appeared suddenly diminished among her peers. Her eyes, widened by the rolling dawn of realization, darted around to catch the eyes of her companions, seeking reassurance where none was offered. She was confronted with the stark truth of her actions through the unfolding lens of communal awareness. Her attempts at petty vindication were now cruelly undone. Harper, addressing the crowd, began, her calm voice blending with the soft whispers of the wind. "Thank you all," she said, her sincerity unyielding. "When I invest in races such as these, I do so not for recognition, but for the promise of potential, the young athletes who push past limits, akin to the roads I once traveled. Sports have the power to bridge gaps, unite us in dignity, and see beyond the facades we wear." Her words carved a path through lingering doubts, reshaping guilt into appreciation. Those who had moments earlier basked in their own perceived superiority now felt compelled to lean into humility, their understanding of exclusivity irrevocably altered. Harper's earlier choice to remain unadorned was both practical and intentional, as she now explained. "I came as I am today, not to challenge norms, but to remember my roots and to celebrate the genuine passion that keeps us striving toward both personal and collective greatness. It wasn't forgotten opulence that projects power, but human tenacity and the quality of one's actions." Her declaration reverberated, ricocheting through the Arcadia, seeds sowing a unified recognition among the gathering. The applause lasted, swelling to a chorus, a harmony of vindication and gracious acceptance that dissolved prior shadows of disdain. As varied cyclists, victors materialized by their sweat and dedication, stepped onto the podium, each bowed their heads in quick reverence to Harper before taking their place amidst earned golden glory. The moment crystallized further when the race winner, a burgeoning talent Harper had personally mentored, held the attention of the captivated masses. His voice, vibrant with youthful sincerity, carried across the stands. "I dedicate this medal to you, Harper West," he said, lifting the glittering token skyward. "For the unwavering belief in not just me, but in all of us pushing boundaries. You've taught us more than we could learn alone. You've instilled the courage to stand tall, even when facing adversity." The collective gaze shifted back to Harper, who nodded to the young athlete with a look of unobscured pride and appreciation. Here was the embodiment of the cycle unbroken, the evidence of her investment pulsing vibrantly with each heartfelt gesture. The woman in white shifted awkwardly, struggling against the silently accusing eyes around her. She was the embodiment of wounded self-importance, a drifting satellite losing gravitational hold amid an evolving constellation that no longer aligned with her previous certainties. Her attempts at reparation through apology, feigned, and rendered mute, mingled with a palpable desire for invisible retreat. Once scorned as an intruder, Harper had navigated the trials of perception and emerged sovereign of her narrative, iron veins woven delicate amid the turmoil. Her authenticity, uncompromising and resilient, transmuted derision into epiphany, its light threading a tapestry that displayed not personal conquest, but humanity's capacity to shift paradigms through empathy and understanding. As the sun cascaded into afternoon hues, gilding the awed spectators with vivid prisms of connection, Harper once more etched herself across their consciousness. Her grace was neither performed nor manipulated, her success worn with a humility that neither weaponized her accomplishments nor diminished her strength. Ultimately, in an arena awash with hierarchy, tales of patience and endurance forged anew by athletic spirits continuously cycling between the lines of competition and introspection, Harper, and those who stood upon the important face of change, had redefined what it meant to belong. It was here, among echoes of past falls and future accomplishments, that Harper laid the foundation of unity's oscillating rhythm, the beats accentuated not by her hands alone, but by every soul that chose to acknowledge the grace of shared humanity. The elite cycling race had intertwined, woven into seamless mythos beneath the rhythmic spin of wheels and the symphony of the wind. The denouement, crafted by her unrelenting devotion and restorative presence, lingered with an enduring resonance. Harper West, a champion by both title and spirit, had emerged, an irrefutable promise that essence outweighs embellishment. She stood, unvarnished and unwavering, in the very heart she had claimed and conquered through warmth and resolve. As the ceremony concluded and the podium cleared, the immediacy of transformation lingered palpably within the crowd, a kaleidoscope of shifting allegiances and newfound respect. A buzz spread through the onlookers, an invisible but tangible shift in the cultural ether of the event. Conversations buzzed with Harper's name as people recounted their own glimpses of the day's unfolding events, everyone eager to align themselves with the narrative writ anew. The event host, having witnessed the unexpected twist at the forefront, took swift action to address the ripple effect Harper's ascendancy had caused. With decisive authority, he approached the woman in white, who found herself receding into the background like a shadow shying from light. His words, though not loud, carried the weight of the crowd's judgment. "Your conduct was unworthy of this event's values," he declared, his tone measured yet firm. "As such, I'm obligated to remove you from our VIP list. We will not stand for exclusion masked as pedigree." The crowd watched as she paled, cheeks flushed not from anger but an overwhelming sense of being found out, her guise of control dismantled. Gossip slithered through the air like a live wire, igniting curiosity and speculation about what had transpired. Her fall from illusory grace became the latest fascination, discussed in hushed corners and buzzing social media threads. Harper observed this from a distance, her heart a mixture of satisfaction and empathy. She knew the sting of misjudgment all too well, and though vindication was sweet, she abhorred the pettiness of celebrating another's downfall. The truth of her strength was illuminated not by the missteps of others but by the choice to rise above. As the event wound down, guests began to filter out, their departure filled with the electric hum of shared experiences. Many stopped Harper to offer words of genuine appreciation, apologies couched in humility, extending olive branches she received with her intrinsic grace, an artist sculpting forgiveness from the malleable clay of human dynamic. Meanwhile, the woman in white stood at the periphery, alone. She glanced around, caught in a daze as if the world was one she no longer fully understood. Her attire, once a badge of her belonging, now felt like a costume, conspicuous against the sincerity that enveloped the crowd. As she prepared to leave, she found herself hesitating, weighed down by a heavy sense of the lessons harshly learned that day. Gathering her courage, she crossed the invisible line where Harper lingered, conversing with remaining attendees. Their interaction caused a slight hitch in surrounding dialogue, eyes subtly pivoted, ears eager for the final act of resolution to unfold in their presence. The woman in white approached Harper with a tentative step, her voice edged with vulnerability. "I owe you an apology," she began, faltering slightly as if the words were unfamiliar to her tongue. "I was wrong, and I deeply regret my behavior. You are inspiring, and I couldn't see that through my own misguided judgments." Harper met her gaze, unfaltering, and while the acknowledgement of apology offered its own balm, it was her composure and the warmth lingering in her eyes that soothed deeper wounds. She nodded gently, her voice soft as velvet. "Thank you. Realizing and acknowledging one's fault is strength in itself. We all have our moments." She paused, casting a reflective glance toward the now nearly empty stands. "But what's important is how we choose to move forward from them." It was a subtle decree of intimacy, a grace note in the cadence of human growth, offering a path to redemption even without erasure of the past. No theatrical gestures, no hidden malice, just an honest exchange marked by an understanding of shared frailty. The woman in white, visibly touched, nodded appreciatively, the corners of her mouth lifting with a semblance of genuine relief. She had received a gift most precious, an insight into humility paired with the impetus for change, a type of wealth previously unvalued amidst her guarded collections. As the sun dipped lower, casting an amber glow across the venue, Harper found herself at peace with the tumultuous days unfolding. Her presence had been felt, her ethos respected, and she had left behind an indelible mark, the true measure of triumph in her journey, not measured by accolades but echoing in the hearts she had touched. She stepped away from the event, the once daunting venue now relinquishing its hold over her, her stride infused with the knowledge of purpose realized and hurdles overcome. Harper moved with the knowledge that she had not merely witnessed change but had catalyzed it, and as she departed, the very earth seemed to hold its breath in respect. The spectators, those remaining and those reflecting from a distance, realized the landscape they now occupied had subtly but irrevocably altered. Threads of mutual understanding formed unanticipated connections within this shattered tapestry of former pretenses, a testament to the courage of standing firm against divisive expectations. Harper West, amid acknowledgement and humble applause, had demonstrated power unyielding and unadorned. Like the cyclists who relentlessly pushed against wind and incline, she carried forth her torch of authentic presence. As attendees lingered in shared revelation, they spoke not of hierarchy nor material accolade but of integrity and the pursuit of genuine unity. In the quiet aftermath, Harper walked into the unfolding future, an enigmatic emblem of quiet strength, a beacon whose light would guide those lost or led astray by misperception and invite them back into the fold of shared humanity. And though others now bore the onus of reflections made, she continued, undeterred in her quest, each footfall a quiet testament to resilience and unconquered grace.